Hi everyone. I have been getting some questions about writing Project One, so I thought I would make a video to help walk you through some things. First of all, you're going to want to go over to the left side of your screen on Blackboard, and there's a link that says Writing Projects. From there, you'll see a tab that says Writing Project One. And this will give you pretty much most of the information that you should need in order to do this project. You'll see, well, first of all, this is writing from personal experience. So this may feel different from other pieces of writing that you've done in the past. This one is, you're not really going to be arguing anything. It's not based on research. You won't really be analyzing anything. You will be telling stories about your own life. And specifically, we're calling this a narrative collage. Narrative is just a fancy word for a story, and a collage is a collection of things that are put together in order to make one big thing. And so usually that's images. You might paste images together in order to make a collage. You can also make word collages. So with this project, you are doing a story collage. You'll be writing at least two what are called vignettes. Vignettes are, you can think of them as snapshots. Normally a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a rising action, a climax, a falling action, all of those sorts of things. Vignettes don't necessarily have those things. In a vignette, it's okay to just jump right into the action. So it doesn't necessarily need to have a clear beginning or clear, ending. It can just sort of be a snapshot. You could also think of it as like a scene from your life. So you'll be creating these two or more scenes from your life, and you need these scenes, these vignettes, these short stories, to work together to create an overall theme or image about yourself. So that's an overview of the project, and I'll get into a little bit more detail here in a minute. Um, some of the nitty gritty. It needs to be at least 1,250 words, and it should not be longer than 1,700 words. And it's worth 20% of your final grade. Here on this page, you will find a video that, in my opinion, does a very good job of explaining what this project is. I'm not sure if I can do a better job of explaining what this project is than what this video does. So if you haven't watched this video, I strongly recommend that you do that. I think that will be a big help for you. If we scroll down a little bit, you'll see some goals of the assignment, some things that we're hoping to accomplish by doing this project. And then you'll also find a description, a written out description of the assignment as well. I'm going to jump to this paragraph. So, for your first major writing project, you'll create a narrative collage, a weaving together of written vignettes, brief stories, and if you want, visual images. So, if you want to include pictures, photographs, drawings, even like videos or sounds, you can, but that's not required. Your collage should illustrate and reflect on some aspect of your identity. You'll think back through your own history and pull out several events, anecdotes, and images that will tell your readers something about where you've been, what you've done, or who you are as a student, mom, son, worker, citizen, anything you want, really. There's actually a fair amount of freedom with this project. You get to choose the stories that you tell. You get to choose what sort of message that you want to convey to your audience, to your readers. And it can be about pretty much anything. So a good way to approach this is to just think. One, you could think, what are some good stories that I like to tell? Most of us probably have stories from our life that are very entertaining, or reflect an important time in our lives. So you might start with that. What are stories that I like to tell? What are stories that are interesting to people? Or you can begin by thinking about, okay, what's something that I want people to know about me? And once you have that big idea in mind, you can start thinking, okay, what are some short stories that I could tell that would help show my readers who I am. Let's see here. You can share vignettes about one aspect of your identity. For example, by focusing just on your experiences as a worker, or you can weave together stories about several aspects of your identity. Obviously, the more things that you are trying to convey, the more complex this project will become. So it's kind of up to you how many things that you're going to want to try to accomplish with this project. Bare minimum, you need to share at least 2 vignettes. You may want to do more. In a minute here, I'm going to show you a student sample that includes several vignettes. You may also want to include pictures. Up to you. Let's see here. Let's jump ahead to format and design. I think one of you asked me if it needs to look like an essay, and the answer is no, not necessarily. Um, so you can choose how you want your paragraphs to look, the spacing. You can choose your font. Obviously, make sure that I can still read it. But for this project, because it's a little bit more creative, you get to decide some of those things for yourself. So this does not necessarily have to look like an MLA format essay that you may have written in high school. Let's see here. Here's a description of how I will be evaluating your story. I would read through that on your own. I don't want this video to be super long, but here's an explanation of how I'll be grading this project. And then also up here, you'll see a grading rubric. If you download this is the tool that I use to grade all of your projects. So that's an overview of writing project one. If we go to our classroom, and go to week 1 here, I'm going to point out some resources that will be useful to you as well. Task 1.3, we have a video here in which this professor talks about collage writing. So that's probably going to be useful to you. And then task 1.4, these 2 readings, these are both narrative collages. So you can use these as examples of what this project might look like. And we also, let's see, it's going to be under, I think, 1.5. Yes, task 1.5, we have a student sample. So a previous student, this is their narrative collage. We also have a video here of this person explaining his brainstorming, his pre-writing process. So if you haven't watched this video, I would also do that. But let's take a look at his example here. So you'll see, first of all, if you know how an essay typically looks, you'll notice that this doesn't necessarily look like an essay. There's no like header at the top. He doesn't have page numbers here. Normally essays don't have these asterisks in the middle. No works cited page or anything down at the bottom. But each of these things is a vignette. These are just brief snapshots from this guy's life. I believe he goes pretty much in chronological order, or in other words, in the order that these things happened. You don't necessarily have to do that. If you want to play around with the timeline of your narrative, you can certainly feel free to do that. Notice that he has a lot of dialogue here. That's probably something you're going to want to include as well. Because if you're presenting snapshots from your life, life is filled with inner thoughts, with people communicating with each other, with us, hearing and seeing and experiencing things. So not only are you going to want to have dialogue, but this is also going to be a pretty descriptive, detail-oriented project. This writer uses these asterisks to show when one vignette ends and the next one begins. You can do that if you want. If you just want to have spaces, that's fine. You could even kind of write this as a journal if you wanted to. If you wanted to include like a date above each of your vignettes, you could do that. That could be an interesting way of writing this project. Let's see here. Now this writer chose not to include any visuals, which is fine. That does make for a little bit of a boring project. I do encourage you to include at least an image. I think that would be a good way to really draw your readers in, but is not strictly speaking required. So yeah, I would read through this. I would watch those videos that I pointed out. Make sure you read the assignment sheet. I think that's it. If you watch this video and still have more questions, feel free to follow up with me. But hopefully, this gives you a little bit of a better idea of what you need to be doing for writing project one.